Hey everyone, I'm Annie Dickerson, and on behalf of the entire Goodegg Investments team, I wanted to welcome you to this episode of the Life and Money Show, the show where we talk about everything from investing to financial freedom to parenting, traveling, creating a life by design, and everything in between. And I'm here with my amazing co-host, Susan Elliott. Susan, why don't you start with sharing with everyone a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, we hit on a topic that is so close to home for you and I, because we both have kids. We were kids ourselves, and we think about that time. So, really talking to everybody here about financial literacy and helping our younger generations learn more about finances early on. And what I love is that there's, specific to parenting, maybe some tips that you can think about. Our guest today, Brian Curcio of Rapunzl, which we're going to get into more too. And you'll hear him talk later on in the episode. He gave us some great tips about getting kids involved, but also touched upon ways that, if we focus on teaching finances earlier on in the lives of everyone, or at any point through adulthood, right? Our whole society is probably actually going to benefit it. And what he's doing, I think that it was in his in the final three questions, to be able to promote financial literacy with a group that may never hear that, was pretty powerful. So stick around to learn more about that.
Indeed. And for any of our listeners, before we dive in, because we're all kids at heart, we've all been
Hmm.
kids. So it's never too late, better late than never. If you're new to the whole concept of investing, particularly if you're curious about real estate investing and passive real estate investing, where you get all the benefits of being a real estate investor without the hassles of being a landlord, a great place to start is on our website. We've got a page just for you. It's goodegginvestments.com/start. It's our start here page, nice and simple. And it takes you right from the beginning, and it helps you to understand what this is all about, how you can get started, how to find the right fit for you, and much more. So if you're in that place where you're getting started, go to goodegginvestments.com/start. All right. Well, with that, let's start from earlier on before we get into our kids and money and how our listeners can help teach their kids more financial literacy and money skills. Susan, I want to know, when you were growing up, what did you learn about money?
Oh gosh, I grew up in two households, my mom's and my dad's, and very different money vibes, but
Mm,
both like not really supportive of learning about it, quite
yeah.
honestly. With in my father's home, he was the penny pincher to the max, and so I developed this. But in ways too, where he was dealing with a lot of his family background and financial hardships, I'm sure, that came up with his family. He lost his dad really young, so his mom was supporting him and his two twin sisters, twin and his other sister. And so I think a lot of that came into him, just like always wanting to be thrifty in ways that sometimes was really embarrassing for me, like not tipping enough to our servers,
Mm.
and me
My
feeling
mom
like, oh
did
my
that
gosh,
too.
oh
Yeah.
gosh, just like under
I
my
know.
skin.
I know.
um and and ways that I understand now around, respecting money and like treating the flow of money with excitement and love, as opposed to just like fear and
Yeah.
hate. I don't know. There was a lot of negativity around money. And then my other household, my mom and my stepdad, we grew up in the very stereotypical middle class neighborhoods. I went to a good high school. It was always just, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job. But at no point, in looking back on it now, my stepfather was an engineer, my mom was a teacher, and but I don't think we talked about money like one time. I mean, I knew that we were being supported. We weren't It was almost like, because everything was just humming along just fine. We went on one beach vacation a year with I'm sure my stepdad got 2 weeks off a year for his entire career, which is preposterous these days. But we did that. We didn't go on luxury vacations. We didn't, we weren't extravagant, but because we weren't, there was also no elements of suffering, luckily. I think it was just like humming along, everything's fine, no need to talk about it. But I look back on that now and think I could have had I understood that he was contributing to his 401k that whole time, we could have talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't think that I think that I wasn't well prepared to manage it on my own after I left the
Hmm.
house, in other words, from either home. How about you, Annie? What
Yeah.
did you grow up with money? How did
It's
you grow up with
interesting that
money?
you talk about those two different perspectives because I similarly had very different perspectives around money from both my parents and as well as the circumstances of our life too. So I've talked about this on the show before, but just for any listeners who are new, I was born in Beijing and then we moved to the States when I was 4. And it wasn't an intentional move. My dad was getting his PhD as an exchange student at Iowa State, and we were just going to do a quick tour and then we were going to go back. But the Tiananmen Square massacre happened a month after we got here, so we were able to stay as political refugees. So my parents decided to stay. Now, that right there created a huge a change in our money perspectives and money situation because in China, where we had extended family and a history there, my parents were fairly like decently established middle class in Beijing. Not to mention that the cost of living, at least at that time, was much, much lower. And the government covered a lot of basics like healthcare and housing. So we were pretty set in Beijing. When we moved to the States and we decided to stay, it was a very different circumstance. My mom, who had been a nurse in China, she wasn't able to be a nurse here because of the certification qualifications. So she became a nursing aide, which paid much lower. And my dad, after getting his PhD in sociology, which is not a very practical thing, was searching for a job for a long time. And so all of a sudden, we went from middle class to fairly low, modest income. And so we were shopping at garage sales. We were offered free lunch at my school, like those sorts of things. And all of a sudden, I was 4, 5, and 6 at the time. So it wasn't like huge on my radar, but I could sense that money became a thing. It had never been on my radar before, but it became a thing in my life where all of a sudden we went to Walmart or Target and I couldn't get everything. And my mom would say, next time, we'll get that next time. Or we'd, look at all the prices and we'd pick the cheapest one. Little things like that started to signal to me, okay, maybe we don't have enough and maybe we need to work together to get by less and pull back. And so I kind of got that from a young age. And then when circumstances got a little bit better, my dad got a job. We moved to New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and things were flowing a little bit better. And I sensed that too. And you know how they say that money doesn't change who you are, it only amplifies who you are. And I got to see that firsthand because my dad changed a ton. My mom was always the penny pincher, and she continued to be, and she taught me a lot about saving. But my dad, where he was a saver when we had to be, once we had money, he became a gambler.
Mm,
And he
opposite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so that in my middle school and high school years, I saw that dichotomy very clearly where my mom was saving, saving, saving. And my dad was just, using money for these, what I saw as kind of senseless endeavors to try to make money, to try to make more money. In his mind, he was trying to make money through gambling. And so my upbringing was really fraught with a lot of different money perspectives. I'm kind of surprised that I came out like, okay, decently okay on the other end of all of that. But yeah, it was a lot. So anyway, there's lots more tips and advice and resources in this conversation with Brian Curcio, co-founder of Rapunzl. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right. Welcome to the show, Brian. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, start us off. I know you've done some amazing things. So start us off. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you and your high school best friend came to create Rapunzl.
Yeah, it's been a pretty incredible journey. So, my partner Miles and I, we met freshman year of high school. Our lockers were 4 apart from each other, and
It was
we bonded
fate.
over the and we bonded over the fact that we were both teen investors during a year that it was kind of a little omnipresent during 2008 and the financial crisis.
Oh.
So Miles and I were, I mean, it was the headlines every day, but Miles and I really geeked out over kind of what's going on in the stock market. And for us, it was kind of looking at, in the context of a national housing crisis, you had stocks like Apple or Facebook and some of these companies that for us, we were loved as teenagers.
Sure. Yeah.
That were down 30-40% just because of the overall market. And so for us, it was kind of a blue light special. I mean, we really had a fun time, and it was kind of reassured us like, hey, you guys know what you're doing, even though we didn't. We were trying to and reading what we could. And so Miles and I, there was no plan to go into financial education at that point. We were very much set on, let's go into Wall Street, let's make tons of money. And then, so we stayed friends, and senior year of college, Robinhood was starting to gain a lot of popularity. And so for the first time in our lives, we started to see all of our friends start to invest. And the story that always stuck out to us was one of our friends said that instead of buying lottery tickets, they were now going to buy stocks the day before earnings. And that was what they viewed as investing. And it was like, wait.
Ooh.
It's like, oh, there's a better way to do this. So that was where the idea for Rapunzl was born, which was the idea of having a gamified investment simulator where students can simulate $10,000 stock and crypto portfolios and then enter them into national scholarship competitions. And so just really trying to provide a more educational pathway into kind of financial markets, and recognizing that a lot of times this isn't taught at school. And so you kind of have this generational game of telephone that if your parents didn't learn about financial literacy, you're most likely not going to. And so the idea was, how could we create something that's fun, that kids have an opportunity to win scholarships, but also trying to like reinstill these life skills that kind of should be taught at every school.
Neat. Annie, do you have any other questions for Brian about how to? This is great. I mean, I'm already at the point with my 6-year-old where we're going to be introducing sort of her allowance system, and I want to integrate in some investing. And I've got a tip from a friend that like you have to speed up those cycles so she can actually see what's happening with compounding, especially at an early age. So, our family bank, where she's actually going to earn monthly interest instead of annual interest, for instance, so that she can see that grow. Would you have any other tips for parents to be able to set up their systems with their kids to, or maybe it's something that Rapunzl provides too?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rapunzl as a simulator, so it's helpful to show growth and just like I think gaining experience with it. It's a little challenging to go before kind of 5th, 6th grade, just understanding the basics of it. But I know at an earlier age, so there's 2 ways. I mean, you can kind of be teaching the generational wealth and just dollar cost averaging and maybe condensing the cycles. But another cool way of just making this like logical connection to view the world through more of a financial lens is picking a company that the kids really love, could be like Roblox or something, and just buying a couple shares or buy fractional shares, buy $20 of it. And I think that kids really respond well to the idea of ownership. And it's like, no, these shares, you own a piece of Roblox now. And even if it's not growing, the price will definitely change each week. And so I think it creates an interesting way to kind of support kids reading more with kind of like, well, why do you think the stock's down 5%? And even if you're a parent out there who's like, well, I'm not sure, I would know the answer. The greatest news is that the people on Wall Street also don't know the answer. So it's not like there is a right answer to it, but I think working through that with the student, it's great critical thinking and can actually help develop the financial literacy side on the parents too. I think just more immersing yourself in it.